In this video, we'll be seeing how to integrate payment gateway in Android. We'll be using Razorpay for this. First of all, we have to create an API like this, which contains order ID, key ID, amount, receipt, and currency. For this, we have to install a dependency manager called Composer, which will help us in installing the Razorpay dependencies. So go to getcomposer.org and click the download. Download the composer setup.exe file. Now just complete the installation process. Now click next. Here you have to specify the path to the PHP. Since we are using XAMPP, it's placed under this folder. You have to specify your folders and click next, 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 and install. That's all. Now you have installed Composer. I have opened a folder in VS Code and created a file api.php. Now let's start creating our API. First of all, we have to install the Razorpay dependencies. You can go to this Razorpay GitHub repository, and at the bottom you can see Composer, require, and Razorpay. Now you have to use this command to install Razorpay dependencies. Let's open up the terminal and run Composer, require, Razorpay / Razorpay2. Now you can see a new vendor folder have been created with the composer.json file, which shows we have installed Razorpay. Now inside the vendor folder, you can see Razorpay. Now go back to our api.php file. Now here we have to require the autoload.php file inside the vendor folder. For that, open the PHP tags, require the autoload.php from the vendor folder. Here we have to specify our key ID and key secret, which will be provided by the Razorpay. Go to Razorpay and you have to just log in. If you don't have an account, sign up. Now I already have an account. Go to Razorpay dashboard and settings, then API key. Now I am showing this on live mode, not on test mode, so that you could actually see how the actual payment is being integrated. So just click generate live key. Now this will ask for an OTP, which will be sent to your phone number. Enter that. Since I already have a live key, it will ask for deactivating the old key. So I'm just deactivating it immediately. Now you can see it provides us with a key ID and a key secret. So we have to copy the key ID and key secret. You have to copy the key secret right now itself, because this will not be available after clicking OK. So store this somewhere safe. Now let's copy the key ID, create a variable key ID. Now we have pasted our key ID. Now let's copy our key secret, create a variable. Now we have assigned our key ID and key secret to variables. Now you can click OK. OK. Now you can see the key ID here, and you will not be able to see the key secret again. Come back to our api.php file. Now we have to create an object for the class API, which is inside the Razorpay. For that, we have to mention use Razorpay /API/API. And now we have to create the object. Let's give the object name as API. You can specify any name, equal to new API. Let's pass the key ID and key secret. You can see that the suggestions are being given by Copilot. Since I am using the Copilot, now we have created an object for the API. Now let's create an order. $order equal to $API order create. Now here we have to create an array. Now this contains receipt. Now this $receipt, we have to create this. We'll create it afterwards. Now specify the amount and now specify the currency. Now above this, we have to create $receipt equal to. Now the receipt number has to be random. Now you can see that we have created a receipt which starts with order receipt. Then it will create a random number which ranges from 1 to 10,000. After that, it will also add a time. Now, this won't be a 100% random number, but it will be random if you are having a low amount of traffic. So if you have like 100 requests per second, then this will definitely create the same order receipt. Since we are showing a demo, we are not using database. You can create this with the help of database. Now let's specify the amount. Now the amount should be multiplied with 100. So here our actual amount is 1 and we should multiply it with 100. If you are going to accept 100, then just 100 multiplied by 100. This will be our amount. Okay. Now let's specify the currency. Now I have specified INR. You can also specify USD. Now just give a semicolon here. Now we have completely created the order. Now we have to access the order ID which we have created here. We will get this from $order of ID. Now this is returned by Razorpay. So this will be our order ID and this is very important for the transaction. Let's just store it inside another array. Now we have stored the order ID inside an array. Now we need to pass key ID, receipt, amount and the currency. Now we have assigned the order ID, order receipt, order amount, currency and the key ID to our new array. Now let's echo it. We have to echo this as JSON format. So JSON encode, then specify our array. You can also specify JSON pretty print. Now this will align the JSON more beautiful way. Since we are creating a JSON output, we can specify the header as content type application slash JSON. Now let's save the file. We have completed creating the API side. Now let's run this and check whether the code is working so far. I have opened SAMP and started Apache. Now I have placed this under localhost slash Razorpay Android. Now let's open our file api.php. You can see a error. Now this is because we have made a spelling mistake here. Just correct it. Make sure you correct the spelling here and also here. Now this is very important. You have to correct these two places, order, receipt and inside the creation. Now just refresh the page. Okay, now you can see the API is working properly. You can see the order ID, receipt, amount. We have multiplied the actual amount with 100. Okay, then the currency and key ID. You can see the receipt and the order ID will be different every time. So we have completed our API side. Now let's move to the Android part. I have created a new project and selected empty activity. You can see that the layout is empty, just a hello world, and the main activity Java file is also empty. So here we have to create a button. First of all, we have to go to layout, activity main XML file, go to the flip mode and remove the text and create a button. Now give the button an ID. Now just change the parent layout to linear layout. Just set the gravity to center. Now give a text for the button. So now you can see we have created a button which says pay and also the ID btn pay. Now let's go to main activity Java file. Here we have to fetch the content from the API to the Android app on button click. That is, when we click the button pay, we have to fetch the content from the API that we have created here, this API. We have to fetch all these content from this API to the Android app. We'll be using a library called Volley for this. You can go to this URL and you can simply implement this. There's a detailed video also. If you have any doubts, you can see this video. First of all, we have to implement this dependency. Just copy this line. Now go to for Android app, Gradle scripts. Then the second one, build.gradle. Okay. And go to the dependencies. Just paste it. Now we have to click sync now. The Gradle has been updated. Now Woli has been added to our project. Now you can add the permission for internet. This is one of the important point. If you forget to add the permission for internet, the application will not work. So go to the manifest and add the line users permission and route internet. Okay. Then close the manifest. Now go back to the blog and we want to read all the contents from the API. So we are going with a get request. Okay, just copy this code, first one, and you can paste it. Before pasting, we have to set an on-click listener for the button. For that, create an object for the button, new find view by id r.id.btnpay. Now we have initialized the object. Now button dot set on click listener, new on click listener. Now you can see the on click listener has been set. Now inside this on click function, we have to specify the code that we have copied. Now this is a Woli request for getting the data from the URL. Okay, so let's change the URL. First of all, import all the classes. Just click the red and just press Alt plus Enter. Now you will see an option to import class. See, now it will add a class here. See, this one. Same like that. Just import the other classes. Okay, now this part you can remove it. That's all. Now here we have to change this to get application context. Now here in the URL section, you have to specify the URL of your API. Since we have done this inside the local host, you will have to use your IP address of the local Wi-Fi connection. But I will recommend you to upload this to a server, upload the PHP file that we have created to a server, and then use that URL so that it will reduce the amount of error that you could come across on using the localhost. If you're using localhost, you have to go to CMD, come to open CMD and just type ipconfig. Now you will get an IPv4 address inside the wireless. You will get this address. Now we have to use this address for the URL. So instead of localhost, you have to use the IP address slash the folder name. Now you can see that I have loaded the API from the IP address slash the folder name, then the file name. You could use this URL, but you have to make sure that you are using the same network connection, or you should use a emulator to test the application. Otherwise, this URL won't work. So let's host this inside a server and test. So here I have hosted this inside a server and created a URL. This will be just a demo URL. Okay. So we'll be using this URL instead of the localhost address. You could just use any hosting service. I will suggest you DigitalOcean, which is one of the best cloud hosting services. You could also get $100 for spending on DigitalOcean. You have to just use the link which is given in the description and create your account, and you will get $100 for spending, and you could test the platform. You have to just host the API inside the server and you will get a URL. Now for this, you need a domain also. You can also use the IP address of the server. That won't be a problem. You don't need a domain. I would recommend using a domain. Now let's just copy this URL and paste the URL here. Now we have hosted the file and use the URL. You could also use the localhost one, but use the IP address instead. And if you are using the localhost, it will be like IP address slash. Don't use HTTPS because you are using a local address. It should be HTTP. Then your IP address, which we get from the command prompt. Then you have to specify the folder name and api.php. If you're using the localhost, you should place this inside the htdocs folder inside the SAMP installation, htdocs, then your folder name. Okay, hope you know that. So then only you will get the address like this. Okay, now I am using the address which is hosted on the internet. Now this is hosted inside a server. Now here, when you run, you will get the response JSON, that is this one, on this function, on response function. See, this response string will contain this entire JSON data. Now we are just removing this toast message because we don't need the toast message. We have to parse the JSON response that we'll be getting. So let's create a function called parse response and let's pass the response string. You can see that the parse response function is in red color. It's because we haven't defined the function. So let's define the function outside the onCreate method. You should go outside the onCreate and create public void parse response. Now we should receive a string that is response. Open the. Now here we have to parse the JSON and store it in variables. So we'll be getting an order ID, receipt, amount, currency, and key ID. So let's create variables for all of them. String order ID, comma, receipt, amount, currency, and key ID also. Now you can give any name for the variables, that doesn't matter. Okay, now we have to parse the JSON response. Since we are receiving a JSON object, see we are receiving a JSON object, not an array. So create an object for JSON object, new JSON object. Now inside this pass response. Now you will see a red underline. That's because we haven't added the try catch for error and exception. So we have to handle the exception. For that, just click Alt Enter. Just click on the function here and then just type Alt Enter. Now you can see surround with try catch. Click it. That's all. Now you have to write the function inside the try option. Now we have to get the order ID from our response. Order ID equal to object, our JSON object, dot get string. Then inside that we have to specify the name, and this name you have to make sure that this is the exact name that is used here because we are getting these data. Okay, so it should match. Okay, now let's get all the other. We have to capture receipt and the amount, currency, and the key ID. You can make changes to the variable names. but you should make sure that these names should match exactly as the JSON data that we sent. Okay, that is very important. Now we have received all the data that we need for implementing the payment. Now you have to implement the payment. For that, go to the Razorpay documentation. This is the URL. I will provide this in description. You have to go to the step 1, install Android SDK, Razorpay SDK, and just copy this line, implementation, that is the dependency, and go to build Gradle, second one, and just add this and click sync now. After completing the sync, you have to go to the documentation, and we have completed the third step. Okay, we have completed the third step, and this one I will explain. We have completed the third step, that is the creation of API. We have already done that. Now we have to go to the payment handling. We need this part. Just copy this and go to the Android Studio. Create a function, public void init payment. Now here we have to receive all these as parameters. So just copy them and add it in order ID. We don't need the receipt, so remove the receipt and then accept the amount, currency, and PID. Remove the semicolon. So we have accepted the parameters, that is order ID, amount, currency, and key ID. Okay. Now inside this, you have to copy this one and paste it here. Now before the try, you have to create an object for checkout. Checkout equal to new checkout. Checkout dot set key. Now here you have to set the key ID. Checkout dot set image. Here you can specify the logo of your app or the website. So let's just specify r dot ammap dot ic launcher. Okay, we are using the launcher icon. Now you have to go inside the try option, and here you have to specify the merchant name, that is your company name or website name, etc. We are using codeseasy. Specify the company name. Then here you can specify a description, so you can describe whatever the payment is or what they are paying for or anything. We are just using a tagline. Here you can specify the image. By default there is an image of Razorpay. Let's just leave it there. Now here you can specify the order ID. To remove this, and we have an order ID, this order ID. Okay, then specify the order ID here. See, they have specified the response from step 3. You go to the documentation, you can see step 3, that is the creation of API. See, this one. We have already done that part and created our API, and we have the order ID. So just specify the order ID. Now you can specify the theme color, and here we have to specify the currency, and here the amount. Now these two, you have to specify the customer email ID and contact number. So if you don't have them, you can just comment them or just remove them. That's not a problem. They will be provided an option for filling them. If you are having these options, like if you are having an login and like login option and all, you could pass the email. You have stored the email, you can pass them, and you can also pass the contact number so that the users will not have to fill these details. Otherwise, they will have to fill these details. Okay. Now, since we don't have them, just remove it. You can remove these comments. Now, here you can see the activity is in red. That is, you have to pass the current activity. We are in main activity. So pass main activity dot this. See? That's all. Now here you can pass a log. This is just an exception. Just remove tag and give it error. Okay, now that's it. Now we have implement the payment. Now you will get a response after the payment. That is on payment successful and on payment failed. Now you have implemented the payment part. Okay, this will just create all these data into a JSON object and pass to function which is inside the checkout. Now after performing these, you will get a response that is on payment success and on payment error. Now you have to implement a payment result listener. Go to the top section here, extends, and here we have to specify implement payment result listener. Now this listener will give us on payment success and on payment error. See, it's in error. That's because we haven't implemented the functions. Just click here and press Alt Enter. Now you will see an option implement methods. Click that. Now you will see two methods already selected. That is on payment success and on payment error. Click OK. Now you can see on payment success and on payment error at the bottom. Now here on inside the on payment success, you can specify what action should happen if the payment is successful. Inside the on payment error, you can specify what should happen if the payment got failed. So here you could either call an API and insert the data to the database, or just show a toast message or download something, etc. You could do anything inside the on payment success. And just like that, you could also show an error message or just try again or anything you could do inside the on payment error. For now, we are just implementing a dialog box which shows payment successful, and on the on payment error, we'll be showing how to get the exact error. Okay, there are different types of error. You could get exact error. So first of all, create an alert dialog dot builder new alert builder. Now you have created an object for alert dialog box. Now set the title message and just show the alert box. Now let's set the message. Now inside the message, we could use this S. If you don't know what this S is, now this S will contain the payment ID. So you could specify the payment ID just for the demo purpose only. I don't recommend showing the payment ID to the customer. You could either create an invoice or something. Now let's show the dialog box. Now that's all. Now if the payment is successful, this alert dialog will be shown. Now when the payment is error, the error will be as an JSON response. You can see in the documentation, this is the sample of a error response. It contains error, which will contain the reason. Okay, you'd see invalid OTP. Like that, there will be different reasons. So let's see how you can show them. So this will be the format of error response. Okay. Now here these details are given inside this URL. You could just check this. I will keep this inside the description. Okay. There are different types of reasons and all. Could check them. Now go to the on payment error. Now the string S. Now this S is a JSON response. We have to create a JSON object. Just click here, type Alt Enter around with try catch. Now we have created an object for the response with the response. Now we have to access the error. So this one, okay. Inside the object, we are having another error, which is also an object. And inside that, there is the reason. So for this, you have to create another JSON object. Let's give it JSON object 1. You have to specify object dot get JSON object. And inside this, we have to specify the object name. And here it is error. Okay. Hope you understand. We have opened the first JSON object here. See, this is the first JSON object. Then we have to open the second one, which has a name, that is error. Okay, this one has a name. See, now just open it. We have to specify here error. Now from this object, we have to access reasons. So just create a string reason equal to. Now the reason is inside the object 1. Okay, so object 1 dot get string and specify the name, that is this one. Okay, reason. Now you can show this as a toast or anything. We are just using a toast message to simplify the message. Toast dot text application context. Now you can give the reason. Now you can see we have got the error and the reason from inside the, which is inside the error, and then we have shown this as a toast message. Now that's all for implementing the payment gateway using Razorpay. So this is a very simple tutorial. Now we have to call this init payment function. We haven't made the call init payment. We are calling this inside the parse response function. Okay, and pass order ID. First one is order ID. Then the second one we need is amount. Then the third one is currency. And fourth one is key ID. That's all. Now we have completed the integration part. We don't need the receipt in this part. So we have just created it. You could use this receipt to keep track of the invoice. So this is something which is useful for you. So you could use it. So now let's try running the application. Before that, make sure that you have added the internet permission. Go to manifest. Okay, we have added the permission. So let's run the application and see. You can see the emulator has opened and you can see the button pay. Now when we click this, the Razorpay payment option will pop up. See the name, and this is the name we used. Then the description. Okay. Then you can see the amount. You can see in the API we are having 10,000, but the actual amount which is showing is just 100. See, that's why I told you actual amount multiplied by 100. Then you could also see the image here. Now since we haven't provided the customer details, the customer will have the option to fill this. Customer will have to fill this in order to continue. So let me just change this amount to 1 rupees and show you the demo payment. Now I have updated the API and set the amount to 1 rupees. Okay. If you have any doubt regarding this, you could contact me. The group link is given. We have a community and you could join them and your doubts will be cleared there. You can see that I have changed the amount to 1. Now let's run the application. We are using the actual server URL. Okay, you have to deploy this inside a server. Just place this, just upload this to a server and it's good to go. That's all. Now click the pay. You can see the UI popped up. Now let's build this. Now you have to select any payment option. We have different types of payment option. I'm using UPI. Now you can see the payment process has started. Now this will wait for the confirmation. Now you can see that I have confirmed the payment, and now you can see the payment is successful, and this is because I have confirmed the payment from the respective UPI application. Then the on success function, that is this part. See, we have the payment successful title and the payment ID. See, now if an error occurs, I will show you. Now let's try clicking back. See, payment cancelled. That is the error reason. See, and different types of errors will show. We could also show a customized error reason also. That's up to you. Okay. Now you could use this documentation errors. You could see detailed reasons and all, and you could create an awesome application. Hope you understand how to integrate payment using Razorpay in Android. If you need any help regarding developing the application, you could contact us. Details are given in the description. We also have a community where you could get help. If you have any errors, any problems, you could come there and ask your doubts. You could use it for anything related to programming. So now if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more such videos.